So, my name is Jonathan Chester, and I am a founder of BITWAGE. So right now, there's a problem in the Bitcoin ecosystem. That problem is banks. So as an individual, we still have to have a bank account, and we still have to engage in the traditional systems to actually obtain Bitcoins. Now, this may not seem like that big of an issue at first, but there are two major implications that I'd like to discuss. The first is in regards to the unbanked. For many of us in the Bitcoin industry, we believe that digital currencies have the opportunity to bring modern financial tools to the people that need it most, the unbanked and the underbanked. However, we still need to have a bank account in order to buy Bitcoins. Sure, you can have cash, you can carry a wad of cash with you to buy some Bitcoins from a random person in a dark alleyway somewhere, but it's not the most inviting situation, and by no means is it very scalable. So there are 2.5 billion people that are unbanked according to the World Bank, and about 30% of US households are considered underbanked according to the FDIC. So this is a large portion of the world that we, like the banks before us, are continuing to ignore with this new technology that has the opportunity to bring unbanked and underbanked people modern financial tools. So how can we bring these modern financial tools to the people that need it most in a secure and scalable way? The second implication that I'd like to discuss has to do with the inefficiencies of the current banking system. So for a long time, banks have had a monopoly on the scalable, riskless, and liquid means of holding value, known as a checking account. Because of these monopolies that these banks have had, they've had very little reason to provide greater consumer benefits, and instead have become costly and inefficient. For instance, sending money to my grandmother in the same day, 2 cities away, costs $25. I could drive over to my grandmother's house and put money on the table faster and cheaper than that. And if I wanted to save money through the banking system, you wait 4 business days, 4 to 6 days, and you're still paying $3 every single time. And on top of that, when I'm holding my money in the banking accounts, right, the banks are taking risky investments with my deposits, only holding a fraction of my reserve, and only providing a limited interest rates on these returns, when really they should be providing more for the risk that they're taking. So Bitcoin is meant to provide true competition to the banks and force them to have to innovate, to provide more consumer benefits to people like you and me, but we're still forced to use them. And with the current methods, with obtaining Bitcoins by linking a bank account to an exchange, you have to go through long verification processes, you have to wait several days to purchase your Bitcoins, but most importantly, you're still casting your vote to saying that we still need to use the banks. How can we truly compete with the banking system when we continue to voluntarily use them in order to compete against them? People should be able to free themselves from the costs and inefficiencies of the current banking system. So how do we avoid and eliminate our perpetual dependence on the banks by gaining direct access into the Bitcoin ecosystem? The answer is simple, really. Eliminate the middleman by gaining direct access into the Bitcoin ecosystem. So Bitcoin Payroll provides a fast, easy, low-cost means of obtaining Bitcoins to any Bitcoin wallet you want. Bitcoin Payroll for the individual allows an employee anywhere around the world to receive recurring Bitcoin paychecks without requiring their employer to be on board. And it's all done while circumventing the traditional financial system. Bitcoin Payroll for the individual, or as what we like to call BPI, provides freedom at your fingertips. So freedom of choice. So now you actually get paid the way that you want to get paid. Before, you were limited by the benefits and the type of wages that your employer offered, but now you're actually able to choose the way that you want to get paid. Freedom from complications. It's an easy sign up. You don't have to go through very long verification processes. And because when you got verified from your payroll provider, you don't have to do it again. We don't have to do the same thing that the exchanges have to do. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about your bank complications coming up, right? The banks don't have to be involved for you, so you don't have to worry, oh no, the bank doesn't like my transaction, and I have to go through all these emails and all these phone calls to try and figure out my banking situation. no limits, right? You can purchase as many Bitcoins as you want with your Bitcoin payroll. Before all these exchanges say you can only have a certain amount of Bitcoins per transaction. But with Bitcoin payroll, really it's just as many Bitcoins as your paycheck permits. Freedom from volatility risks. So on top of this, by receiving recurring Bitcoin payrolls, you're actually reducing your exposure to volatility. When previously you would buy Bitcoins based off of positive or negative news or the price going really far in one direction, essentially gambling on short-term volatility swings. Instead, with recurring Bitcoin payrolls, you are engaging in dollar cost averaging. So the effect is a reduced volatility and more of a long-term bet on Bitcoin, investment on Bitcoin. Freedom from receiving methods. You choose whatever wallet you want to get paid to in a Bitcoin payroll situation, right? With a lot of these exchanges, you actually have to have the Bitcoin send to your wallet on the exchange. And the issue there is, well, you don't know how secure that wallet is. What about the time it takes from moving the Bitcoins from that exchange to your actual wallet? You don't know what's going to happen there. So with this system, you're actually able to get Bitcoins to whatever wallet you want. And freedom among borders, which is one of the most interesting things, right? It doesn't matter who you work for, it doesn't matter where you're working, but you receive your payments anywhere in the world seamlessly with a low cost, and those payments are immediately accessible after they're sent. So in case you didn't know the team, it was our shared vision that brought myself, John Lindsay, and Mike Gordon together, and the promise for what we could do that brought our board of advisors onto the team, which includes Chris Haroon, a partner at Artist Ventures, Joel Weiss, who was the CTO of Sun Microsystems and developed PCI compliance at Visa, Juan Llanos, who you may have heard from BitReserve, and he's been in the compliance industry for over 13 years, and Joel Schechter, who's ran a payroll company for over 16 years before selling that to ADP. So it's been both an honor and a privilege to work so closely with such an advisory board, such a distinguished advisory board, and their competencies and experience in the relevant industries have been so invaluable for creating our vision and turning that into a reality. Paramount to this vision is the belief in Bitcoin's ability to break down borders, enabling anyone in the world to engage in a global workforce. And this idea of creating a global workforce is not a new one. Many companies have been trying to figure this out for a long time. For many years, Fortune 500 companies have been trying to leverage skilled talent and cheap labor across the world. However, the cultural differences and the management issues have left a lot of these enterprises wanting. So in order to promote a more globalized workforce, Accenture, now a $27 billion management consulting, technology services, and outsourcing giant, developed a way that enabled workers around the world, especially in India and the Philippines, to engage with these Fortune 500 companies. Accenture provided the team management, HR policies, and leadership development required of these large enterprises to hire and maintain an international environment. And now with these experiences, workers around the world were given the opportunity to learn applicable and important business skills, earn a high-quality living, and rise through the ranks of society. Now, while these companies like Accenture did provide a way to create these large outsourcing industries in specific countries, the people outside of those countries and outside of those industries were really left with very little means of engaging in the global workforce. A consultant, for instance, in Malaysia would have to go around calling companies in Europe and the United States individually, often calling people in the wrong departments and speaking languages that they barely even understood. So Odesk and Elance came about to solve this issue, bringing contractors and interested employers together with the click of a button. These two companies help over 8 million contractors in over 180 different countries find jobs. So now workers around the world have an easy way to find a job in order to keep food on the table. But while many of these advancements have made it easier to find a job and more cost efficiently find a job, we at BitWage saw that there were still challenges to international payments. So I'd like to tell you the story of Pedro Fidelli. He begins by saying, "I'm a software developer in Argentina working for American clients. Heavy government restrictions here mean I cannot receive payment through traditional methods without my paychecks taking a substantial hit. So these government these government restrictions that Pedro is referring to are the capital controls placed on the Argentinian peso and people's access to receiving funds and currency conversions. So over the past 20 years, the value of the Argentinian peso has been reduced down to almost nothing twice, causing many Argentinians to lose faith in their currency. And the government, in a response to protect the value of the peso, pegged the value of the Argentinian peso to the US dollar and limited people's access from converting from Argentinian peso to other currencies. And the result was the creation of an unofficial rate called the blue rate. So when I checked on the exchange rate on Monday, it was 8.6 Argentinian pesos to the dollar officially, but 13.77 Argentinian pesos to the dollar according to the blue rate. This is a rate that most Argentinians use and is published in the paper locally every single day. And unfortunately for a lot of these workers out there, when they receive their payments, whether it's Western Union or bank wire transfer or some other traditional method, they receive the official rate, not the unofficial rate. So the issue, to put some numbers to it, is I send $1,000 US to my Argentinian worker. They receive 8,600 in Argentinian pesos. And in reality, those pesos are actually only worth 624 US dollars. So when I send $1,000 US to my Argentinian employee, they only receive 624. So this is a cut to his paycheck, a substantial one, about 35%. Pedro goes on to say that Bitcoin is the clear solution, but my clients aren't always comfortable dealing with it directly. So while Bitcoin provided a medium for Pedro to avoid this 35% cut to his paycheck, his clients were not really open to the idea. And this is not abnormal. There are a lot of companies out there in the Bitcoin industry that, sure, they would love to offer a Bitcoin payroll. But most people who've heard of Bitcoin know the big news, right? Mt. Gox, Silk Road, Bitcoin is dead, all this crazy stuff. And so a lot of these companies tend to want to take a wait and see approach before dealing with it directly. And on top of that, when you have these very large conglomerates and employees are asking for Bitcoin payroll as a benefit, like 1 or 2 employees, usually these big companies are saying, well, let's wait for more people to start asking for it before we go through a costly implementation that only 1 or 2 employees want. So Pedro finishes by saying, BITWAGE's payroll individual has helped me bridge that gap, allowing my clients to pay through familiar means while I receive Bitcoins on the other end. Not only that, but the payment processing time has been cut by at least half. My experience with BITWAGE has been nothing short of excellent so far, and I'll be recommending it to others in my situation. It is stories like Pedro's that have at once strengthened our belief in the ability for Bitcoin to break down borders and inspired in us a strong desire to make this more accessible. It is this impetus to create a truly global workforce that provided the inspiration behind our third and most recent product. It's with great pleasure that I can announce today the launch of International Payroll for the Individual. So what International Payroll for the Individual does, it allows employees around the world to receive their payments internationally in local currency from any U.S. employer. And this is made possible without requiring the employee to have a bank account and without having the employer to have to willfully participate. With the initial iteration of this launch comes the first transparent fiat-to-fiat solution that enables international payments and paychecks from the US to the Philippines, leveraging Bitcoin. By using Bitcoin, we're able to provide faster, lower cost, and more efficient ways to provide payments to employees in the Philippines without requiring to have a paycheck. As one of the top 4 countries receiving remittances, one of the top 5 countries receiving outsourced payments, including a $25 billion business process outsourcing industry, the Philippines is a natural fit for our initial launch. We've integrated with our partner in the Philippines, Coins.ph, in order to offer the lowest costs and the most payout options, including bank transfers, cash pickup, cash card, door-to-door delivery, mobile money, and of course, Bitcoin, which will always be the fastest and cheapest way to actually receive your payments. So we are continuing to do the work that Elance, Odesk, Accenture have begun, enabling people to engage in a global workforce all around the world. When previously people had no efficient means of receiving their paychecks without a bank account, we are now providing a way for anyone in the Philippines to receive their paychecks from international jobs seamlessly, regardless of their financial situation, as unbanked, underbanked, or banked. Our goal in 2015 is to continue expanding on this international service, incorporating more currency inputs and outputs, breaking down borders, and enabling everyone and anyone in the world to engage in a global workforce. And that's BITWAGE. So before any questions, if I've got some time, I just wanted to mention real fast a quick promotion that we're doing. If you look around your necks, you'll see a lanyard. It may or may not have our company name on it, but if you tweet at us a picture of your face with the lanyard on it, at BITWAGE, #Tnabc, we will be giving free Bitcoin payrolls for the first 3 months after we exit our beta for anyone who does that. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Alex Palanza. I work for the Bitcoinist.net in New York City. I want to ask you, where do you see the difference between the international background of the people who have issues with inflation and some people here in this country that so far they haven't noticed that there's a lot of money floating around, which takes away value of the dollar?
So what's the difference between people who see the inflation internationally?
They see inflation every day, but here it's more challenging to explain to people that we have some sort of inflation.
Well, I guess one of the main reasons is because so many different countries are comparing to the US dollar, the value. So it's really hard to see that there is inflation in a certain sense, because a lot of these other countries, it's like, yes, we notice that it's costing more for us to buy goods according to the value of the US dollar, right? And for a lot of people inside of the United States, you actually see the values going down, right? It actually is becoming cheaper. So it's hard to see and really, really understand that inflation is occurring. But some people in the United States have sort of begun to accept, yes, like the value of the dollar is going to go down and prices are going to rise over time. It's just sort of been a tradition. A lot of people in the Fed and the government say it's a good thing, and it's sort of to each their own to come to the conclusion: do I want to have an inflationary currency or deflationary currency? For me, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the room, the idea of having the value of your currency, when you look at it in the long term, going up over time instead of down, it's pretty positive. For me, when I think, okay, a currency is faster, it's easier, it's more efficient to use, and the value goes up instead of down over time, that just sort of seems like a winner to me. And I think that in the United States, it's going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more stability in the currency itself for people to start looking at it that way. So.
In your case of Pedro,
Mm-hmm.
you said that it's the capital restriction that is creating a barrier to his customer to get paid for whether or not he wants to get paid. But is it going by BitPay just a way for him to avoid probably the laws in Argentina as well? Like, is he doing anything illegal, like taking these bitcoins and maybe avoiding the tax scheme that his country has?
Well, so he can still pay his taxes, right? He doesn't have to take this money and not pay the taxes that are. If he decides not to pay his taxes, can it affect us? Well, so when you're paying international contractors, it's up to the contractor to actually go about, report it to the government, and pay their taxes, which is something that we are a proponent of. If you're receiving your payments, you should let your government know. And it's just that the rates that are provided by the government and that the government almost subsidizes in Argentina is the official rate. And so the government is actually subsidizing these companies to provide $8,600 as opposed to the unofficial rate. But when people receive their bitcoins and they trade it locally, there's no laws as of right now that say you can't engage in something like that. However, they do need to still pay their taxes, which is something that we would encourage.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.